It's called that atheism may not produce predicted benefits. The endlessness of is, known also as life, nature, providence, necessity, cannot be rightly named, said Liuzzi, but if named we should call mother of all. Lucretius, Roman materialist, called Venus giver of all, for if love were not death's equal, no life would exist. God the Dad's worshippers may disagree. Bosses, warlords, and their underlings want a patriarch whose word makes them be. What of his son? Quakers, Tolstoy, Gandhi, millions too poor for history to heed, live as Jesus taught in word and deed. God's death will not make thieving warfare less. Only helping to house whole families, not ours, can end human selfishness. Here's quite a long poem about humanity. Humanity began in Africa, the southern of 3 continents around Earth's biggest lake, still called the Middle Sea, for on its coasts more busy empires rose than on the globe's 3 other continents, which thinking bipeds came to dominate by killing bigger brutes they cooked and ate. Our massive brains required such heavy food. Most creatures, when their needs have been supplied, incline to rest, but not so humankind, whose active surpluses of conscious mind delight in much that does no earthly good. Warfare, the pyramids, much faster cars, spaceships that placed a camera on Mars. Primitive folk achieved more useful things. When global freezing made some animals grow thicker hair, our first imaginings conceived domestic fires by rubbing sticks or sparks struck out of flints. From slaughtered brutes we cut fur coats, so cooking, tailoring, and other arts grew by these handy tricks. We made bone needles, coracles of skin, arrows and bows to shoot fast-running prey, baskets to carry fruit and fishes in, painted cave walls and moulded cups from clay. By slyly sharing meat and hearths each day, we bred dogs out of wolves, although our forces could not yet master, breed, or fight on horses. In northern Europe, as the ice withdrew, our sort extinguished mammoth and wild bull, the giant sloth in both Americas, in Australasia, huge kangaroo. These hunter-gatherers were nomads who roamed the whole earth before a farm or town were habitations that tied people down. Hobbes said existence for such early folk was nasty, brutish, short, because he thought by fighting endlessly for mastery, they never rose from abject poverty. Early historians did not agree. Jews thought God first gave prehistoric folk the fruitful earth to live in peaceably. Greeks also thought most folk had equal rights, till they forged iron blades to dig, cut, slay. Then armoured horsemen seized commanding heights, built forts to plunder those who worked on plains. So warriors made towns and slavery, societies in which unequal gains rule an impoverished majority. Yet why do many nations nowadays still call Earth's Middle Sea a Latin name? Perhaps the poet Virgil is to blame, who wrote of war and he war robbed of home, driving by hardest knocks and heaven's rage, called economic pressure nowadays, from Troy to Italy, where finally, oh yes. You're right. Sorry. this man who wished to plant a colony mastered a kingdom that at last became a conquering republic based in Rome. Dante then told us how the Latin state united Greek and Hebrew history, creating European Christendom, which long outlived the Roman Empire's fate. After Pope Leo had crowned Charlemagne, chief Franco-German warlord of them all, successor to Augustus Caesar's reign, rulers of Europe thought for centuries their holy Christian nations, church and state, were meant by God to dominate the globe, so strove to make their lands imperial. Spain, Portugal, France, England, Dutch, Dane, Scot, refining on the use of gunpowder, the compass, astrolabe, arithmetic, by conquest, navigation, colonies, steam engines later, and electric wires, split the whole planet up between themselves, whether the natives wanted them or not. So 19 centuries since Jesus died, despite Rousseau, Tom Paine and Robert Burns predicting socialist democracy, 4 antique empires and their monarchies started world wars that have not ended yet, since warfare keeps humanity in debt through governments enthralled by usury. The art of gaining wealth by lending wealth is giving means of life to folk in need who must repay much more than they receive, and thus are damned to future poverty. When wealth was in the ownership of land and locally produced necessities, this art was called a form of robbery. But highly useful goods came to be made in workshops powered by steam machinery, so coal-fired towns for serfs and factories needed imported goods from overseas. Both raw materials for food for fast machines and for their operators foreign grain turned into bread they bought from bakeries. The homemade loaf and more domestic skills died out with hand looms, wind and water mills, bringing such monetary wealth to trade that now the biggest landlords had to share their governments with lords of industry. Both throve as banks upheld by usury achieved transoceanic currency. Some thought this change would bring democracy, although observant socialists could see that owners managing new industry would never share their profits willingly with employees whose toil created these. So a fair distribution, Karl Marx said, depended on a workers' revolution. Seizing control of factories, banks, land, all properties producing what we need, plus luxuries none wish to be without. One single party communist elite could bring the state monopoly about, a good dictatorship which could disband when it had made equality complete. Marx did not know that only Russia started the revolution he foresaw, or that his communist dictatorship, when it became the maker of the law, ensured that party members now would be a middle class like Western bourgeoisie, with better housing, health care, holidays. One privilege most state monopolies proclaiming communism could not enjoy was private fortunes held for them in banks. Only those communist aristocrats, the party bosses, secretly transferred private amounts of monetary gain to Swiss accounts where usury still reigns. While claiming to uphold democracy, all empires jostled for supremacy, crushing the governments of poorer lands, robbing them of natural resources. Moscow invaded openly with tanks. Washington, using bribery and banks, staged military coups through local forces. Both sides had nuclear capacities, preventing white-hot suicidal war, though still preparing one. Rich nations choose competitive expenditure of wealth on weapons that they hope to never use. No rich state wants to stop that deadly waste of work that should be ending poverty, an outcome no strong rulers wish to see, and certainly not those in Russia, who asked some USA economists to tell them how to sell state property, a triumph for the rule of usury, and greeted as the end of history by those who thought that billionaires would do what governments would not, create world peace by profiting by selling armaments, as warlords such as Kissinger and Blair were paid huge sums to make armed conflict less. Usury works by multiplying debts, trapping the borrowers in bigger nets, so only those with most can gather more. How many overworked and underpaid are needed to maintain a billionaire, or lack a home that some own many more? And since today the oligarchies reign, commanding all the armies that exist, the major opposition that remains is now the suicidal terrorist. Faith in our justice, hope of betterment, love that abides in pleasant families can only come to be where liberty, equality, fraternity presides, without surveillance by a tough police rejecting ancient rules of human rights to guard the riches of minorities. None will break ranks, as Wilfred Owen said about the first but not the worst world war, though nations trek from progress. That is true. Though born unchained, we all mature in fear while poisoning our seas and atmosphere. How could we now come to as good an end as when in nomad times our tale was new? Who harrows brine for fruit in God's blue beard? What chimeras disconsolate lament? In what song's silken skilled transmemberment thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before? Storm clouds brood on the towering heights of the hills of the Chancley Boar. Is ending history in utter nonsense right? So.